Hello, people. Um, Welcome what will be the first of many, but I feel also final videos. It's a finalization of a part of my life that cares and the start of something that is commencing, which is the end. The end game you've all been hoping for. The negative sphere of bringing people down to actually have something nice to contribute. I spoke to Andrew, my friend, about this. Like, how can there be such injustice done onto me? And you expect me to want to be there for anyone, my fellow man, woman, child? Throughout my life, there is one thing I've never gotten, but there's something worse that has happened that I've never gotten, which is empathy. I have never gotten empathy from my fellow man, regardless. You were good as long as you were a quiet mouse puppet, and you sat there and shut up and took what everyone said to heart, even when those were completely and utterly untrue. You may think I'm oversimplifying this, but it's been a long road, and my body is weary. It's tired. I'm tired of not being heard, listened to, cared about, loved, or even remotely that simple term that we all take for granted, human. There are no humans. There are simply those with influence and power and those who are without. Those who are without, believe it or not, are those who are causing more of the problems than those with. See, because those with tend to revel in their own power and not share or not contemplate or not worry about anyone else's. The ones who lack power, in my field of experience, have always been the ones to hunger and cling for power more and more. And I'm beginning to sicken the notion of the fact that I have to entertain these charlatans. I'm a god. These stupid people entertain us, not the other way around. And as soon as one is made clear of that notion, he or she becomes very satiated and liberated by the notion of liberty equals stupidity amongst the weak, and liberty equals the room and possibility for growth among those who have more perfect sense of the world. I did, but I was stagnant by the old notion that I had to do what anyone, including a other deity outside of us, had to tell us. For really, the second notion of the lies spread throughout the entirety of society, throughout a multitude of millennia, has gotten us to the point whereby all of us are now at a stagnant, more repugnant point of civilization. And you cannot even begin to comprehend the second notion of the fact that we are all singular and multitude at the same time. That is, of course, what brought upon the multiversal war, one which each of us being the representatives of a different planet somewhere along the galaxy, somewhere else, who have taken human form, have been ticketed by the notion that we are one. We are one in this singular vessel, but we are not one when it comes to who we really are, who we truly are. It's has been to the correct notion that some people are glad to see themselves as lesser than. Then why should we help those people? Why should we even remotely help those who are continuing to be lesser than? And not only that, is convincing themselves by trying to make sure you become lesser than expected. So here we are, in a world full of lesser beings, expected one to solve all the lesser beings' inadequacies. Why the lesser beings carry on spreading the same disease that got us to this particular point in the first place. I have stated in my lectures on the Matrix and all of the pinpointed acute points where we would have gotten more into had the process of filmmaking of the second and the third one had not been interrupted by, well, hasty sequel programming, or hasty sequel production is a more accurate way to put it, is that furthermore, we have never established a complete version of how all this systematic planetary low and high vibrational frequencies intertwine. And that is more predominantly because we have a notion that everything is as it should be, and that there's no room for improvement, or that no other single being, hence they have a predominantly different outlook on life, or a different spiritual or national geographical background, that they are considered lesser than. Unfortunately, this has come entirely to an end, and does come with the end of the hypocrisy spread by a large amount of white Western Europeans. There the truth hurts, but here we are. So, let us get started on how we really got into where we are now. We predicated a false war around seeming that Russia was bottlenecked by the European Union into forcing to strike a well-organized commanded strike, because had he not pushed the button, someone else indefinitely would have had, and then he would have been bottlenecked with no option but to force hand. And even in those moves, even if you would consider war a chess or risk type move, you would have someone like Putin inevitably want to take the first step. So there was no secret as to why he started firing first, because inevitably someone would have that choice. However, let us not stop there. Let us not stop for the fact that a lot of money has been spent to keep that war going. Just like a lot of money and drones and weaponry and a lot of resources were spent to keep a certain other amount of wars going for as long as they did. Because what we've learned from the First World War was that the longer we keep war going, the more money we make, the more advancements in technology we make. And so it was a well, dare I say it, organized machine. But the gears of war have rusted and have now become stagnant. So there is no other option anymore to keep the war going, because the war will ultimately end up in what is known to be self-destruction, which, seeming by all the post-apocalyptic movies your Western white Hollywood movies seems to love to produce, is more likely that you want to go in that direction. And if you want to go on that direction on an individual level, well, be my guest. But there are those of us who simply want to enjoy the time of our lives that we have, without having to worry about what someone else thinks or what someone else's predicate is on that subject matter. For here in the Netherlands, they say, well, we all have to die sometime. Well, I say, you die on your own pace, I'll live on mine. See, some of us are not occupied or preoccupied with death. Some of us are just here trying to live our lives and wanting to live our lives peacefully. But when that peace is disturbed on multiple occasions, well, one will be forced to react violently if they have to, because that is our right. If our peace of life and mind and spirit is disturbed, we have the right to act violently, to defend it, but never to seek out violence as a means to prevent. Because as Taoism says, preparing to defend yourself is the gravest mistake of someone who plans ahead. It's a lot of time-wasting energy and doesn't conform to anything, because all you're doing is laying yourself open to attack. So no need to go about that any further than that. However, there is a part of us, and I do say, well, me, because there's a lot of me out there. And us, we, or dare I say me, is had enough. And like King, we will be conquered, but we'll be also stopping a violent spread of what is going to be ultimately the worst economic disaster in recorded history that even after 10,000 years we will not recover from. And if that's going to be your prerogative, so be it, but some of us here tend to want to live a more prosperous life because we all deserve that, and we can all have that. But people that are greedy, or people that have been obsessed with greed, are not just obsessed with having, they're also obsessed with other people not having. And that is a hard lesson learned for those that I've been around and studied humans as long as I have. And dare say humans because I am not classified human. It's a classification that socially has been predicated and accepted around the world, but also known that that same pronunciation of the individual and collective identity also makes you lesser than you truly are. You are not no different than an animal or a plant or a rock. There, if a human decides he wants to elevate him or herself, he or she should be allowed to do so, without any interference from the outside world. Now, there have been talks about things like black magic. There's no such thing. There's magic used for good and used for good reasons, and there's magic used for bad reasons. That's it. There is no good or bad. That usually depends on the user and the intent the user tends to use it for. That is the ultimate know-how of what it is to be a magic user. Because we have a lot of technology on our fingertips. But we forgot the most important one. This body, vessel, this creation that has been given to us throughout all of space and time. Though it has upgraded and evolved, it is now being threatened to devolve. And those who want to devolve have the perfect reasoning and the perfect opportunity to choose that so. But no matter what, there are those of us who wish to elevate to higher planes of existence so that they may live fruitfully and profitably without any interference from lesser than beings. Having said that, there are still too many lesser beings out there in the world. So what does that mean? Do we have to wipe them out? Eventually, what's left? Do we have to wipe them out now? Well, they're pretty tenant on doing that by themselves, so we don't have to. And second, is evil going to rise? Yes, because you all chose to do nothing and let one man clean up your entire mess. That man you called God. And you expected to sit around and do nothing while he does all your dirty work. I guess not. Each one is responsible for cleaning up their own mess on this planet, their own karmic justice, and I have done mine. It's time for you all to do yours. So, having said that, let the spiritual karmic journey commence, or be downed and or damned by how you access this next level of your human existence. Because a part of human existence is coming to an end. And whichever part that's going to be is going to be entirely up to the individual who's listening to this video right now, watching this right now as we speak. Because the only way to go is up. But then you have to have been down the rabbit hole long enough, like I did. So, good luck, kudos to you all, and Godspeed on your journey. All you know is who need it. Bye-bye now.